Vigilantes. Unlicensed and unseen, these heroes do their work behind the spotlight to keep their neighborhood safe. Sometimes going farther than licensed heroes are allowed to do what has to be done. This is the story of several such crime fighters. This is My Hero Academia Vigilantes, written by Hideyuki Furuhashi and art by Betten. Welcome to Manga Mondays. This week's episode is on My Hero Academia Vigilantes, as you heard by the title. I'm joined today by G-Pool.
G-Pool, artist extraordinaire, manga enthusiast, podcaster. Here to talk about my favorite side story, maybe. I don't know. It's up there.
Yeah, it's real good. Honestly, I'm more engaged in this right now than I am in My Hero Academia Standard because there's been a very long-going arc, but this is more compartmentalized, so when you get a short story here that's more engaging, it's like to the point. It's been more fun for me.
Yeah, just the way Vigilantes works, it feels a lot just like, I don't know if grounded's the right term, but it just feels like everything's more like centralized, so you really just feel the story beats going by. Like there's not like a wider span of things since this is like a spin-off, so you really just get to focus on the main group of characters you got.
Yeah, the stories are like, they're more like a Western serialized comic in that one or two chapters will be a whole story and it's more dense with dialogue. I feel like you probably get more out of this as a volume.
Yeah, absolutely, and this story does indeed have a lot of fluff in it later on.
There's a bit of a hump with the main girl's like pop star stuff. A couple of them. But yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves in terms of just like overall what thoughts. To start off, how did you come across this story?
I saw it at the local bookstore and I saw these new characters. I thought the cover looked cool and I picked it up because I was still pretty big on My Hero, which I'd say I still am. I've watched the anime whenever it's out, but whenever they're not airing the anime, I forget about it. But season 5's coming, so that'll be cool, I think. It looks cool. The trailer's out.
Yeah, I'm at right now in the manga, which is where we're stopping our review for today, which is like the end of volume 8. It's introduced a character that has shown up in the manga recently, which I think is cool, because there's now some cross-section of a character that was introduced in Vigilantes first that is now going to be in the anime, which is very cool.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about it throughout this, but this manga, despite being a spin-off, does a lot to like, they work a lot with Horikoshi and like influence like some things that happen in the actual My Hero story, which is really interesting and really cool to see coming from what is like a side story that's not even like done by the main guy.
Yeah, this story does a really good job of like being a addition to the world and fleshing out the world in a slower paced way. But yeah, my experience with the manga was hearing you talk about it and being loosely aware of it for a while. I think that I probably saw Knuckle Duster like as a character online before I heard anything about this. And he's very good. He is more than just a cool design. He has some good backstory and stories in this.
He is very good. Knuckle Duster was really like what got me going right from the get-go. I would honestly say, like, if you would consider All Might to be Superman, Knuckle Duster is going to be your Batman in your big DC universe. He works very methodical. He's very serious. He's just out doing his own thing.
Okay, now you're fine.
Epic.
Yeah.
I just had like a scramble of noise come into my headphones.
So a little bit more background about the series itself. This started just as season 2 of the anime was starting, and this series itself has had a lot of fans asking for an anime. There have been some more rumors this year, but those have been sort of floating around off and on, so who knows? I think this is stupid, but I think one of the barriers, I mean, they could just do what they did with Midnight. One of the main two characters' ass is always out. 100%. And beyond that, there's a lot of violence, so I don't know, maybe it's a little bit more intense. They could obviously tone it back a little bit for an anime adaptation, but that could be part of why it hasn't happened already.
They could do it for sure, but I feel like it would have to be a different studio with how hard they work on getting My Hero out there, since it's a seasonal thing, and you can tell with like every episode they put so much effort into animating and everything.
My God, I'm getting this blog post from like 2014 that says, which studio would you like to see animate My Hero if it ever gets animated?
6 years and this question still hasn't been answered.
Nobody
5
knows who's
seasons
doing it.
later.
Oh, there it is, Bones. Okay, yeah, you're right. But yeah, I mean, what I was gonna say was, there are series like Naruto that have had like 4 anime versions, like the Rock Lee and his ninja friends, things like that. Like a lot of animes that are really big have a bunch of spin-offs that are small. And as far as I know, there's not one like that for My Hero, is there? Like a ton of, I mean, there's definitely not as many as some other series have gotten.
There have been like a small handful of OVAs, but no like actual like side stories or anything. Which between Vigilantes and there's also like school briefs or something, and then My Hero Smash. There's a lot of like other My Hero content that they could be working with.
Well, what are the Vigilantes? I think that's sort of answered in the intro, but just a real quick backstory of what like clarifies the difference between a vigilante and a hero. Is before heroes were licensed, they were all vigilantes, and that none of them were operating under the law. And then one day in Rhode Island, USA, unspecific time, just Rhode Island, USA is all they've told us, heroes started getting licensed, and then that happened everywhere. That's the background. And now people that are still not licensed as heroes but still operating in hero activities are vigilantes. And technically under the law, all vigilantes are villains because they're all doing things illegally by using their powers. So basically vigilantes are unlicensed heroes. And they're illegal.
Correct. Now we can talk about characters.
Yeah, so Koichi is a boy who has moved off away from home to go to school in the city, and he lives in a small little hideout on top of a giant abandoned skyscraper. And he fights crime in his free time. He wears one of many All Might hoodies that he collects. This is his trademark outfit. And he has the ability to slide on the ground, which kind of creeps people out, but he does that to pick up trash and do small deal crime fighting. But as he learns to control his powers, he does things like stick to walls and even shoot blasts out of his hands and repel and suck to things, like the wall climbing and even a little bit of flying or controlling himself in the air, as far as just like changing his direction.
The illegal use of his quirk Slide and Glide, in which he slides across the floor on his hands and feet.
Yes, which at first he says he can only do with 3 hands on the ground, but we later learn that's because he just wants to be balanced, but he can actually kind of do it with less. He just falls over, so he's not very good at it. They just do a good job of being like, oh, because he can do this, it would make sense that he can also do this, which is a fun thing that One Piece does with their main character also.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. How Oda and even Horikoshi himself, they both make as much use of the gimmicks powers as they can. Like looking at Luffy from One Piece, his whole thing is he's made of rubber, and there's so much random creative abilities that come with that, all the way up to him pumping his heart with steam and then making himself move faster.
I kind of got the a little bit jumping the shark feeling when it was like, oh, because he can glide on the ground, he can also press the air out of his hands. Because he can do that, he can like shoot a blast of air, and it's basically just like turning into the Kamehameha wave, and it's like a thing that all the shonens do eventually with this sort of power thing, and it's like, okay. But they don't make it too overpowered. Yeah. It's still like not really his thing.
No, yeah, his gimmick is by no means like a powerful one. His whole character is that his fighting style is to run away, basically. He's very about just like catching people off guard if he can, but other than that, he's out of there. Because that's about all he can do.
Still small time crime fighting, which is what he wants to do. Like early on, he gets offered the ability to join a hero agency, but he chooses not to because he just wants to do this part-time for fun.
Now we can bring up the elephant in the room. We've got our heroine of the story, Pop Step. She is beautiful. She has the ability to jump very high. She's an idol illegally parading in the streets.
Yeah, which is an interesting power because technically this is also All Might's power, or one of his main ones, that he can just jump really high and far, but it's not as powerful. She just sort of floats around.
I don't know if I would relate Pop Step to All Might right away.
She's a
she
sort
is
of like idol character that appears at small venues to do little shows, sort of like idols would do in Japan.
more or less she wants to be an idol, she wants to be a celebrity, but she doesn't want to go through any of like the formal training or the just like anything hero related. And again, quirks outside of like hero things are supposed to be outlawed, so she is technically a vigilante. She's technically committing crimes by existing. Such is life.
Yeah, she does
But
these kind
she
of
ends
fun
up-
pop-up shows.
She's
Like
also
these-
nearly raped and murdered in the first chapter of the story, but our good boy Koichi saves her, and they bond and become friends, and they form a team, and it's incredible.
The thing about her like pop-up shows that are illegal also, which is kind of a neat idea, is that she's trying to hide her identity. She doesn't really want to be like in the limelight all the time like idols are. She likes to have her quiet life outside of the idoldom, which vigilantes do. They are by day citizens, and sometimes they sneak out by night or in private to be a vigilante, which is what she kind of does for her pop star work.
And as you said before, they are beyond horny for her. The whole arc of chapter 4 is that a worm man so badly wants to hold her hand that he chases her around, and he has got it bad.
Yeah, he's so much so that he's permanently transformed into that creature.
He becomes a perfect embodiment of his horniness. His long phallic body and his tiny hand. I love that picture.
And she's also saved then, I think in that chapter, by Knuckle Duster, who's our third man and the mentor to these vigilantes.
Knuckle Duster is the man.
He is just jumping off of buildings into the trash. He takes beatings, but he's unstoppable. He's this scary powerhouse. And his method is just beating the crap out of villains.
And his method is that because he does not have a quirk like the majority of our civilization.
Right, which makes him scary because villains are always like, okay, I have to figure out his quirk. Is he like a racer tries to erase his power at one point and he just keeps coming because he doesn't care.
He's just a jacked up crazy old man that punches villains.
Yeah, and his whole thing is like he goes in prepared. He does research like on buildings with binoculars, and he like fights these guys knowing their weaknesses, and kind of like Batman, he uses like utilities to stop them and fight them in creative ways.
He's always like swinging around on his hook shot or whatever. And the way that they draw him too is very it's very imposing, very American style too, with his strong jaw and his white eyes coming out of his beanie. And that he just literally has brass knuckles over his hand. That's his trademark weapon and namesake.
He's a great like All Might for this story too, because he does do the I am here thing. He just comes out of nowhere and just powers through anything, and he does the huge
He slings
smile
down
with his
and lands
perfect
in the
white
trash
teeth.
and crawls out of the trash. And then we've got our fourth main character, Aizawa.
Yeah, basically. He's just like around, and then Koichi sees him in the streets and he's like, oh, it's my friend Aizawa. And Aizawa's like always doesn't want to talk to him, and he's like, please don't.
I'm pretty sure Furuhashi just loves Aizawa. He has a hard-on for that man because he literally becomes a main character of this side story as the whole thing goes off. He literally invents a background for Aizawa, gives him a backstory. Oh God.
He does, which canonically gets used, and it's really cool because, like I said, they don't really have time for things like this most of the time in My Hero Academia, so when they get to flesh them out like this and then it becomes canon, it's very cool.
And then, of course, there's all sorts of other side characters along the line. They're the two like little gag characters. They're borderline Wolverine and Cyclops, but they're horny teenagers.
They become like the leaders of Pop Step's fan club. Yeah, but let's just go in order real quick. So, Volume 1, they're introduced. Some good dudes on the street do it for the love of their community, do it for the love of justice. We meet Koichi, who's just a good guy. We find he's using his powers mainly to help people out in the community, and he gets some nicknames like that aren't the Crawler. I think in the first chapter he gets some ones that are different than the hauler, which
he
is
was
his
Mr.
eventual-
Nice Guy for like a second, and then he started to go by the Crawler, and everyone misheard him and starts calling him the Cruller, which is very important later on in the story, surprisingly.
Maybe you have a different translation than me too.
The gag is no one actually knows what to call him, and that comes
Yeah.
into play later on.
Mhm.
Oh, I was about to just move straight on to Volume 2, but Volume 1 sets up the whole story arc of this whole thing. There is a drug going around that people are taking. The drug is called Trigger. Trigger is used to amplify quirks, but more or less drives you insane and turns you into a villain. So the point of Knuckle Duster and his crew of young vagabonds are to find out where all these drugs are coming from and put a stop to it.
Yeah, these drugs are administered in a few ways. In the very beginning, they're handed out to people that are small-time villains to make them more powerful, and these villains will take them to do whatever they want. But in the beginning, the drug is also pretty unsophisticated, so they just kind of go on a rampage and lose their shit and get caught. But because these people come out of nowhere and they're usually small-time villains, the heroes aren't necessarily aware of them in advance, so they end up taking it out on their local community, and that's when the vigilantes get to come in and try to stop them. And then following that, in Volume 2, we have our first little villain introduced, who later becomes Stain in the mainline series, and he's sort of a Slade figure, like, hey, what's up, it's me, in post. That is not Slade's arc, he just looks like Slade. Stain does not have the same arc as Slade. Slade is just a killer who wants to take over the world. It has nothing to do with this. Regardless, he looks like Slade, and his arc is that he is fighting for justice, but he's going too far and just like actually killing villains, which even Knuckle Duster has to slow him down and be like, you're just a murderer, dude.
Yeah, and
I'm the one fighting for justice.
It's interesting seeing like a real character get a backstory for the first time in like another set of things, because in the normal My Hero story, we're just expected to believe that, or expected to accept Stain right away. He's this guy who hates fake heroes, but you actually get to see more of that like build up and set up. He actually meets like Koichi and Knuckle Duster, and they have a whole brawl, but that ends up making him think even more about his ideals, and which leads him to becoming Hero Killer Stain.
I think a little bit that happens before this that I may not have gotten the notes is like Knuckle Duster starts mentoring Koichi and Pop Step to be local vigilantes, and it's implied that he has been doing this for a long time and maybe has more to him that has got him to this point. And then following that, in Volume 3, Koichi meets a senior at university who helps him study, who is Makoto, and Makoto is doing her thesis on vigilantes, and she sort of is a powerful woman who forces her way into this trio, and
Makoto, again, somehow tying them to the main story. She is the little sister of the detective. I believe his name's Tsukaichi. He doesn't really show up too much in the main My Hero story, but he gets a lot of page time here. Yeah, he is one of the few people that knew All Might's real identity before he was outed. Yeah, it's just another parallel, bringing in new characters and relating them to existing characters, and then somehow making it work. We also meet Captain Celebrity.
Oh yeah, Captain Celebrity.
I don't know if I've had a turnaround on a character quite like Captain Celebrity before.
That's true. I really liked him, like right where we left off. He got a really nice second backstory.
Yeah, he starts out as just a scumbag from America because he's like on leave from America or something. I don't quite remember the whole setup for that, but
his PR got so bad in America.
Right.
Country.
Yeah, so
because he became known as this scumbag hero, and he was so powerful that like it just represented the country poorly and himself poorly, so he had to leave.
Yeah, he had to go get a fresh start in Japan, and a lot of people basically saw him as America's All Might since they didn't know too much about him. Because he had a very successful track record as a hero, but at the same time he was also just a scumbag.
Mainly cheating on his wife, which is sad because his wife is wonderful.
His wife is wonderful and tiny.
So yeah, he comes to America and he starts womanizing, Japan. He starts womanizing there as well. But he sort of gets tied down to a manager who is Makoto, who starts to clean up his public image and to kind of tame this man.
Yes, Makoto is very much a overworker. She is always doing something productive, whether it's trying to find out who these vigilantes are or just keeping Captain Celebrity's PR high. She literally has a scene with Koichi where he saves her, and I guess we should preface this. Her quirk is a lie detector, where if she's like touching you, she can literally feel out your heartbeat to tell if you're lying or not. And she asks him,
I totally forgot about that.
Are you the crawler? And he says, no, because he's the crawler. And she goes, well,
oh yeah,
I guess I gotta go find something else to do.
Yeah, but she does hang out with him because he has his ear to the ground in that city, so he helps her on her thesis about vigilantes. But her two main jobs that she does is she's the manager for Pop Step and her pop adventures and setting up concerts and things like that.
Yes, this manga also becomes an idol series by like volume 3 or 4.
She's the idol manager, and she's also Captain Celebrity's manager, and she's also hanging out with Koichi to research vigilantes. So she kind of just has her fingers in everything. But she's a very good character. She's very like a go-getter and powerful, and she just like is a powerful
very
woman.
likable.
So she's got a great personality. She's very likable. Like Koichi's mom comes to visit around this time, and she's like becomes best friends with Koichi's mom because they're both such powerful women. And Koichi's mom's quirk is hilarious. She can they call it a fly swatter quirk, so she can make a slapping motion with her hand and like hit Koichi in the back of the head from 10 feet away. So she just like bullies her son with her quirk.
Her literal belligerent parenting quirk. Meanwhile, while everyone's having fun, having super epic idol content to promote a supermarket, Knuckle Duster is out beating the shit out of his daughter.
Yes.
We should have prefaced that also.
So after the initial like quirk, or after the initial trigger drug influx, where it's being distributed on the streets to people like just one by one, his daughter, Knuckle Duster's daughter, becomes the main villain of this arc, where she has a bee quirk where she can like, I don't know if it's her quirk or like it's a creature that infects her, because
I believe
conclusion to this
how
arc,
I've come to realize it. This might be explained later, but it seems like the bee is controlling her because she apparently wasn't a bent on destruction crazy person. It's a very good example of like a double life like storyline where she's very good at just being a teenage girl, but then also going out and being malicious and killing people with her quirk or her trigger delivering bumblebees. She like one of the first times you see her, she comes up to get a selfie with Popstep, and they're just having fun.
Yeah.
And then she turns out to be a bad one.
She's doing this with bees, which are very hard to notice, and the heroes are very slow to notice them. But Knuckle Duster is not. He sees the bees and he's after her. I don't know if it's because she's his daughter and he's like become aware of this by watching the streets, but he's on the case early, like he is in the streets normally.
Yeah, I believe he already had some like intel on the whole situation, but he was the first one to like spot the actual bees out there when one almost injects trigger into the Wolverine boy. So yeah, that's all the setup for Knuckle Duster punching his daughter with his electric charged brass knuckles, and then once he fried her, he defibrillated her back to life. It was boss.
He rips the bee out of her eye and like kills the bee boss. And like it tries to escape, and then he just starts spraying pheromones on her body, which makes them come back, and then he just kills them again with fire.
It's very brutal. It's very just like, again, at the same time in the story, there's just an idol like pop dance going on a rooftop, and Aizawa's down there like, I'm gonna make sure nothing bad happens to this idol dance. I love idols so much.
He is also taking care of his sick wife, and trying to assure her that everything's okay. And she's sort of in the hospital at the same time as his daughter is after the events of this, and he's just taking care of them for a while and in the background for the next couple volumes.
I think in like volume 3 you get a nice shot of him all cleaned up after he went to go visit his wife, and he looks like a normal human being.
In like a blazer, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, his daytime persona is so funny because Makoto corners him and he just has a business card and he's like, I'm with public relations. It's like, that is not real. He's not actually. He's just a retired guy.
No, he's got it, don't worry.
I was just gonna say, like, to wrap, all the characters we've talked about have a lot more. They have a good fleshed out backstory and themes that you see of people living double lives and getting backstory to some of the main characters in the mainline series that then become canon are all very cool.
Yeah. So overall, it's a good story for like whether you're a fan of the My Hero or not, because like obviously you wouldn't really pick this up if you didn't care about My Hero in the first place, so that's kind of the only thing that would really hold it back. But you do get those nice bonuses being a My Hero fan when you see all the other like canon characters come in. You get Midnight, you get Aizawa, you get
oh yeah, there's a ton of Midnight.
You get a lot of All
There's
Might
a whole-
actually.
Yeah, the conclusion to Captain Celebrity's story is really good. The second story with the whole background to the previous life of Knuckle Duster is very good. It's like probably my favorite part of this so far.
My Hero Vigilantes, definitely worth checking out. If you're already a fan of My Hero, maybe you're looking for something a little bit darker, because this does go, I'd say it's a little bit darker, just because in general you're focused on more adult characters than the kids side of things, so I think that already leads to just that even being an option. And B, just a fan of like short stories, shonen stuff in general. It's very good at capturing those feelings.
Yeah, like you said, if you're already a fan, you can get a lot out of this, but it has a bunch of really good short stories beyond that. And there's a couple of characters that don't make it into the main series, like Knuckle Duster, that are totally worth reading for and seeing their short arcs.
Absolutely. And I'm sure everyone who's watching this is already caught up on at least the anime, if not the manga, for My Hero, so you're going to need something to keep you busy until March when Season 5 comes out, so Vigilantes is going to be that story to keep you preoccupied.
Yeah, and there is a character here that comes around the point we're at now, like Chapter 60, that is introduced as a main character and a reveal in the manga now that'll probably come out, that'll probably be talked about in Season 5, you'll understand a lot more about if you've read this. So it's worth reading for that also. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for joining us. If you like this, we have more manga episodes you can check out, and we're looking forward to Season 5 of the anime. So that'll be cool too. Support your local bookstore. Support your local friends. Buy Christmas presents for them if you're watching this before Christmas.
Buy birthday presents if you're watching this after Christmas.
Yes.
We will get Pop Step's ass animated, I guarantee it. Just keep fighting, brothers.
Keep fighting the good fight. And have a good rest of your day. See ya.
See ya.